when I was graduating high school, I told my dad's like, what are you going to do? I go, I'm going to own laundromats. And he goes, why would you do that? And I go, so I can make money while I'm sleeping. I'm just going to say out of the gate, a year from now, you wish you had started today. And when your money's sitting in the bank, even at Chase or wherever it might be making 2 or 3% interest, it makes a lot more money and a lot more growth. So we're a little over $88 million raised in the last few years, but we didn't raise anything really in 2023 or 24.
That's the kind of the amazing part is I just assume that you guys have been in real estate for like 10, 15 years. So in less than 5 years, you go from transitioning from ATMs to investing in multifamily. What's the goal? Like
$1 or $2 million a month in passive income.
Forget chasing single-family rentals. Let's build commercial portfolios. Collect the best insights and information from commercial real estate experts and industry heavyweights on this episode of the Rent Stew podcast.
Welcome back to another edition of the Rent Stew podcast. Today's episode, we are bringing you Mr. Michael Guthrie, who's a seasoned real estate investor and entrepreneur. He's renowned for his strategic approach to building wealth through alternative assets. Co-founded an ATM business that expanded to a network of 8,000 machines, and then created Pacific Capital LLC, which he leverages insights gained from scaling his ventures into multifamily real estate investing and focusing on data-driven strategies to generate passive income. I mean, I don't know what else you guys could be looking for on an episode of a podcast, but this one's going to bring it to you. So with no further ado, I want to welcome Michael to the podcast.
Thank you, Christian. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so anyone that's watching or listening to this podcast, let's start out with the basics. Who is Michael Guthrie?
Entrepreneur at heart, loves starting businesses, growing, scaling, anything that can drive more passive income. Like we were talking earlier about the laundry business. When I was graduating high school, I told my dad's like, what are you going to do? I go, I'm going to own laundromats. And he goes, why would you do that? And I go, so I can make money while I'm sleeping. And that was my goal. And it went from laundromats to wanting to own car washes. And then all of a sudden the ATM opportunity fell into our lap. It was a brand new industry. And talk about passive income. That's exactly what that was.
And so, did you ever actually own? You did own laundromats. You did own car washes, or you just go straight into?
I dove straight into the ATM space.
Gotcha. And so, how long were you in the ATM space?
About 28 and a half years.
28 and a half years. And you grew it from.
We grew it from one. Me and my wife. We actually had come here to Phoenix to a conference, met with some folks, and went home. We created a flyer on a Friday evening around 7, 8 o'clock. We went to the nightclubs in San Francisco and started pitching the super nightclubs about having an ATM in their space. We signed our first one. DNA Lounge was owned by Rob Schneider, the actor. Oh, wow. And then locations just started to fall in line.
And so just in California, or you guys expand like multi-state, national, like where?
We were nationwide. We were almost in every single state.
Okay. And so how did you go from transitioning from the ATMs into getting into real estate?
Well, the ATM company was making a truckload of money, and we started to buy single-family homes and got to about 8 of those, and that really wasn't scalable as two people trying to operate those and operate a company. So we found a multifamily seminar that we attended during COVID, and my wife's like, we figured it out. This is how we're going to save on taxes. And I'd been in the warehouse working all day, and I come home, and she'd been taking notes. She'd seen Brad Sumrock talk, and Grant Cardone was on his thing, and Robert Kiyosaki was on this event, and all of a sudden she's like, I got it. This is how we're going to save money, and she explained it to me, and all of a sudden we were dropping 50,000 into a apartment complex, and that wasn't going fast enough, so we started putting 100,000s in. That wasn't getting the money deployed quick enough, so we started with 300, and then it went to 500, and then we got asked to syndicate at that point.
You just started apartment investing less than 5 years ago.
Absolutely.
So you went from ATMs to apartments, and now you're scaling and growing rapidly.
100%.
What's the goal? Like
$1 or $2 million a month in passive income.
Okay, so the goal is focused on increasing and growing like the passive income side.
And helping friends and family grow their net worth along the way. I mean, we over 21 and 22, We raised a little over $82 million, and in the last 12 months, we raised another $6. So we're a little over $88 million raised in the last few years, but we didn't raise anything really in 2023 or 24.
That's the kind of the amazing part is I just assume that you guys have been in real estate for like 10, 15 years. So in less than 5 years, you go from transitioning from ATMs to investing in multifamily. And then I know you have an affinity for net lease, which we're going to talk about later. But not layer on top of that, you've raised how much money?
$88 million.
And 2 of those years you didn't raise any?
Correct.
So we got 5 years, he's raised $88 million. I know I'm meeting you now through Bryant. Bryant's my best friend and, my business partner. And so I know you guys met. How did you guys meet?
We met at a conference where I was actually speaking on capital raising.
And he's good at walking up and just introducing himself to anybody.
He's good at taking space and getting to know people very well. I credit him for that. I mean, I love to meet people. When I'm in a room of 100 people, if I can meet 3, that's plenty. I don't need to meet 50 because 50 doesn't create relationships. And I can't raise money across 50, but I can raise money from 3.
So was this Hero Alliance?
This is Hero Alliance, the very first one.
So not only did Bryant help create the relationship here and meet you guys, you and your wife at Hero Alliance, we also become good friends with Shelley and Corey Peterson.
Okay.
From that same exact conference.
That's perfect.
Yeah. And so I'll credit them because that's where the name of this podcast came from, is their hats and their
And then
gear.
we followed up when we got back in town because we were both in Arizona, and we had a Get Multifamily big event at our event center here on campus, and we had the pleasure to invite Michael up on stage as one of our panelists, and Samantha, they were double booked at another event that night, and Michael made sure that he came, and I just kind of got a chance to get to know him. We sat down in my office. We got a photo next to my hero, Pele, who was in 5th grade. I did a biography report on an athlete, and it was an opportunity to choose somebody that you wanted to be or that you wanted to learn more about, and because you aspired or you were motivated by this person or this individual. And on the 3rd page, I think I turned the book and I found out that Pele was born on October 23rd, and he was number 10. And I was number 11 in soccer, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's my birthday, October 23rd. I had no idea. And it's not every day that you meet another individual that shares your same birth date. And so when I found out that I share Michael Guthrie's birth date, we were fast friends. And then that was after a couple McAllens at the bar, and we got a chance to know each other.
So you guys share the same birthday, and then your birthday's the day after my mom's.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yes.
And their anniversary is the day before that.
Yes.
That's interesting.
21,
Yeah.
22, 23.
Yeah.
So you look for signs, you look for good people, you look for people that are go-givers and they're willing to come and help, speak in front of your audience and your community. And that's what we're doing today. We're again, on a podcast. Michael's the king of being a go-giver, and we've had multiple, different events and charities and things that we're involved with, and we're going to, continue to build the relationship. And that's what not only capital raising is about, but business is about. Business is about relationships. It's not always about, top line, bottom line, numbers, black and white, black and red, whatever it may be. It's all about always about the relationship.
So let's talk about specific capital lending.
Yes.
Okay, so you invest in real estate. You're really good at raising capital, obviously. So where is Pacific Lending investing? Is it capital raising? How does, what do you?
Pacific Capital's holding company.
Gotcha.
For our general partnership side. So we raise capital in there and then we place it into different opportunities. That's basically what we do there.
Okay, so you're raising capital, and then you're investing in properties and funds. How are you?
So we just did a fund of funds for a multifamily event or complex in North Carolina. We've also raised as co-general partners on a number of deals in the multifamily space and the triple net space. And we're getting ready to raise a fund now for hard money lending.
So coming from the ATM business, you're operating and you're growing this ATM business. It's becoming super successful. Now you're getting into real estate. So let's just pretend somebody's listening and watching us right now, and they've got what you said, laundromats, car washes. Let's say they've got 12 plumbing locations or auto shops or whatever, and they're like, I got to get into real estate. What would you say to to that person that's listening right now about transitioning or, getting out of that or keeping that and getting into investing in real estate, whether it's multifamily or retail or whatever they might be drawn to?
Great question. I'm just going to say out of the gate, a year from now, you wish you had started today. And when your money's sitting in the bank, even at Chase or wherever it might be making 2 or 3% interest, it makes a lot more money and a lot more growth when you get it into a project that actually can accelerate. And if you think we're going to have inflation going forward, rents typically follow inflation. So get your money out of the bank and get it actually working for you. You have a job. And I think what people make the biggest mistake of, and we don't teach this enough, is that your money needs to have a job. And you need to send it to work and create more money for you while you're creating money.
So somebody that you're very hands-on. You guys jumped from, got out of the ATM business, or are you still doing it?
I am not.
Okay, so fully washed out of the ATM business. Now you're into commercial real estate, but you guys started buying apartments, and I'm assuming that you and Samantha were both working on those together, or were you more on the passive side as LPs? How do you guys?
Out of the gate, we started as just LPs, so we could actually figure out how it worked.
Yeah.
And as we deployed more and more capital, people started to notice us in the ecosystem we were in, and we got asked to raise capital. They go, if anybody that's deploying that much capital probably has friends that can deploy capital, and how do I get that capital into my syndications or my properties? Well, you bring a partner in that has access to that capital. And like you and I and Bryant probably don't hang around with people that don't have capital. And so we typically have our own network of friends and family that we can go to and say, this is what we're doing. This is the kind of returns we are anticipating or we expect or that we're getting, because you can speak from firsthand experience because we've done it. And then you ask them, would you like to come along with us? And if they would, that's a great way to share what you're doing and to bring people along with you, as opposed to, I talk to and coach I coach in the Hero Alliance, I coach at Capitalist Pro, I coach in the Summer System on raising capital, and everybody's like, how do you go and ask for capital?
That was going to be my next question.
I never ask.
How do you overcome that challenge or that hurdle? Someone's like, hey, I want to get into real estate. I've got, $500,000, but I know 5 of my friends also would. But then if I go ask them, they got that mental block that people are going to say, well, you don't know real estate, so why?
Right. That's why you bring them to professionals like us.
Yes, exactly.
So if you can share your experience and what's worked for you, you never have to ask. I like to go back to Oren Klaff's book, Flip the Script.
Oh, yeah.
I actually share so much about what's working for me that people will convince me why they should be in what I'm doing. And it's a way better space to be in. You attract the capital. You don't have to go find it.
Yeah, it comes to you. People start asking questions.
Absolutely.
Do you have like an elevator pitch? Like if we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of raising money from somebody that's raised $88 million in a couple good years, I mean, are you pitching yourself? Are you pitching the deal? How do you go about, like, if you meet somebody, elevator or not, what do you say to them?
Let's talk about the ski lift a few years ago when me and my wife were in North Star at Tahoe.
Oh, that's my favorite place, by the way.
Just pulled that one right out of the hat.
I learned how to ski there when I was 5, and we took my daughter there when she turned 5 to learn how to ski.
I've been an Epic pass holder for eons, so.
I love it.
Heading
We're going to the Four Seasons together.
Let's go.
Yeah, après ski.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were on a lift, and we're chatting with this nurse lady, and it's middle of the week, and she's like, so what do you guys do that allow you to be here during the middle of the week? And we're like, well, we help individuals just like you create passive income to grow their wealth. That's it. Then you shut up. Let them ask questions. Let them speak, because that creates a whole reel in their head about how do I get to do what they're doing so I can be out here, because she was on vacation and we were just there for the week.
Yeah. And did she end up investing?
Not yet.
Oh,
but she's on the list. And what's interesting, it's funny you say on the list. I have about 2,500 people on the list. And on my last raise I did between Thanksgiving and the 13th of December to raise $2.2 million, sent out a few emails. And I got people that I'd met 2 and 3 years ago at events that never even called, filled out the forms, wired in the money.
So let's repeat that. So you have a list of 2,500 that's on your email list. In less than 21 days, you sent an email out, and people that you haven't talked to in years invested. So how did you nurture those people along the way? Was that through different social channels, your LinkedIn? What do you do to kind of keep yourself omnipresent with these people that they feel that comfortable 2-3 years later off of a cold email saying, let's do this deal?
We're continually creating some content and placing it out on our social channels. We send out newsletters every 2 to 3 weeks, talking about market updates, what we see happening in the market, what's been going on in the market, what are treasuries doing, even though interest rates went down and property values, or interest rates came down, what point in the last 100 days? But they didn't really come down in the multifamily space because treasuries actually went up. It was the reverse. So I'm hopeful that we see the reverse coming, that we're going to see more interest rate drops, but the treasuries will actually come down so we can actually see a benefit.
Yeah, where are they at right now?
4.2, 4.3.
So I want to ask you about that. When you've invested, I look at your portfolio, you've got apartments in there, but then Bryant tells me Michael loves net lease, and that's my world. That's all I know. I told you earlier before we started, as soon as I got involved with my parents, I said, we're out of tenants and toilets. Like, we're done. Too many 2 a.m. calls where dad had to leave, or he was going to take me and do something and he had to go unclog a toilet, and I'm traumatized by it. And so, not that multifamily is bad, it's just not for me. So what is it that what are the things that you dislike between those? What is it that's drawing you to net lease?
We purchased 2 net leases during COVID.
Yeah, you got a Starbucks.
We have a Starbucks and we have it's called the Learning Experience.
Yep.
We paid cash for both of them. Starbucks is only returning a 4.5% on your cash. But we raised that $2.2 million in 45 minutes.
Because of the credit worthiness of the tenant, or?
Because Starbucks is sexy.
Yeah.
Like, I have a little Starbucks. You can buy them. They go on a train station. I have one sitting behind my desk. And people go, why do you have that Starbucks? I go, because I own one. Well, how do I own one? And it doesn't matter what it's returning. They want to be a part of something that they can say, I own a Starbucks.
Part of the country club.
Exactly. It's like a country club.
Yeah.
And then the learning experience is returning 7.5%. We paid all cash for that $6 million raise. Took almost 7 weeks. It was crazy. But we paid 100% cash for them because the lending environment wasn't working to put leverage on those.
Yeah.
So those are returning day one.
All cash.
All cash.
Straight in. And what kind of returns are you paying the investors to, invest in these projects with you?
The Starbucks, we all went in. It was more like a JV.
Gotcha.
We all went in cash. And then the learning experience, we did a 90-10 split between GPs and LPs. So they're getting 90% of that 7.5%, 7.8%.
So Starbucks, what other tenants are on your list that you'd like to acquire that kind of, if you had a hit list, like for net lease guys, what are some ones that you like?
So I'm in a triple net lease fund.
Okay.
And we own Circle K's, cool. Come and Go's. Oh, there's another gas station chain. There's I don't think it's Wawa. That's more, the DuPont family owns most of that.
Okay.
I've spoken to the guy that actually funds most of those. I can't remember the other one, but they're all nice C-store gas station complements.
Yeah. And the fact that you don't have to worry about anything. Taxes are paid by the tenant.
Taxes are paid
Insurance is paid by the tenant. For the most part, maintenance. I know Starbucks is not a true.
Pros between a single-tenant lease, which those were, is you can buy them for a lot less money.
Yeah.
So we could afford to pay cash. Apartment building, 150 unit apartment building, $19.5–20 million purchase. You can't really go out and raise that kind of money. At least I cannot. I'm not Grant Cardone, who's buying these things for all cash. But in the cash flow on those levered properties has all but dried up for now. I think we're going to see it start to come back over the next couple of years based on what's coming out of the ground. You can't bring if I was to go today to sign up to get a permit for an apartment complex, we're a year before it's approved, and then I'm like 3 years to build before I have tenant number one. So 4 years of expense until I can start having a return. Where I think on a single tenant lease, we could get a permit within 6 months and probably bring it out of the ground in less than 12 to 18. So it's a shorter, I believe it's a shorter time period, and that's why I'm looking to invest in some of those.
It's $2-3 million, in 45 to 60 days through an escrow. Is that kind of how you see it, where it's like you want to diversify and not all just be in just multifamily and, raising for those asset classes, and also play in some of the,
I think there's a definite opportunity there for even leveraged triple assets. Because if it's a $2 million deal and you raise $500,000, you're only in, 25%. And depending on the lending, you can actually get the tenant to cover all of that and have some revenue on top of that.
So pretty much you could own 100% of the deal just by, raising $500,000 and putting, whether it be debt service on the second position or giving them preferred equity.
Absolutely.
Love it.
So one thing I learned, we have teams as we go along. So when we have our acquisition side, we got our attorneys, our architects, our engineers that we handle, almost creating cookie cutter systems. And then on the exit side, we've got our, investment brokers. And so one thing that I've really, and I'd never thought about this before because everything prior to, I was always just involved in the development. And then when it went to go exit, it was, the principals took care of it. It was outside of, my job was done.
Sure.
And so one of the key things that we've started to really take a look at in our underwriting is dependent on the income that the asset's generating, whether it's a build to suit or ground lease, the higher the income, the higher the cap rate. The lower the income, the lower the cap rate. And you never think about the, correlation between, the lower the income, it's a much larger, buyer pool. So you got a lot more people, 1031, people that, just are sitting on cash and things like that. So it's kind of helped us underwrite some of these deals to be able to, make them pencil or get more detailed. So so let's talk about, kind of the future here with like your capital raising. Like, what do you see, what Brian's talking about, like mix of deals, like what are you kind of focused on over the next couple of years? I mean, where do you see like with the whole Trump administration and some of the things that, yesterday was a pretty big day. What do you have, 210 executive orders signed before you hit
before lunch,
the commander-in-chief ball?
Right.
Yeah.
I think there's opportunity there. I think as the space grows more, and I think there's a whole market out there for it. Depending on where you're actually building, the rural markets are completely different than right here in downtown Phoenix, but there's an opportunity there to raise money for that and make that a commitment. There's also, I'm doing a little bit of hard money lending myself, so there's a big market here for that also.
Okay. And you mentioned, so like, have your apartment deals, have they been existing or have you gotten into like ground up stuff as well?
I've done no ground up.
Okay. So everything's been existing. Cash flowing day one.
Correct.
And same thing on the net lease side.
Yes.
So have you looked at, or, is that something that you're, like looking at investing into the, ground up side of things, or, what are some of the
A lot of that depends on the metrics. I haven't really been involved in the ground up side. I've been asked to raise on the ground up build to rent side.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit longer cycle, like 3 or 4 year no cash flow. Mm-hmm. And that's not really the appetite for my investor pool. I pull my investors at least 2 to 3 times a year to find out what they need. So then I can go out and find what they need and I can put myself into the mix. And I don't ever raise on anything I don't put my own money in.
Gotcha. Perfect. Let's talk about, some of the challenges that have come up post raising capital. I mean, it seems like you went directly from ATMs into this, capital raise. All of a sudden, everyone's like, "Hey, can you help us raise capital?" After the fact and now investing, what have been some of the challenges that, maybe you hadn't thought about that, popped up that you're now aware of as you look at new deals?
The teams. I'm on 7 separate teams across 16 assets as a general partner. Mm-hmm. And so not evaluating the team enough out of the gate or beforehand to ensure that if things went sideways or things get a little tough, that we all have the same goals and the same values. Like me, it's tenants and investors first, me last. And sometimes you get it with partners that they want to be in front and it's not about them, it's about the other, and we get it as long as we keep the equation correct. It worked that way in our ATM business. We took care of the owners of the ATMs first, and then the card holders second. And as long as we took care of those, we got taken care of at the end. So for me, it's tenants, investors first, and then I'll get paid later. And so I want to make sure that I'm always there to serve, and then I will be served later. That's been my whole philosophy in this whole in the whole game.
And so when you come into these deals and you're looking at the teams, aside from that, what are some of the key things that you're looking for with the team that you're partnering with?
Track record, liquidity, net worth, ability to withstand the storms we've had over the last couple of years. So I don't want to always be the guy that's putting in the capital when it's time for a capital call, if and when there is one. So the team is always very important. So making sure that they have the wherewithal to withstand there's going to be hiccups in any business. There's always something that comes up, and how do we handle those going forward, or how do we handle those period is a big deal. And are we on the same page on how we handle those?
Awesome. Outside of that, I mean, talk about a little bit in regards to some, these tax liability strategies, the data that you guys look at, because I know that's like one of the key things for you, right? Is when you came into this, you want to figure out how to keep more of your cash through some of the strategies around real estate. And like, as you do this, again, talking to people that are listening or watching this, that are thinking, I got all this cash that I'm making in my other business. What is it? How do I hold on to more of that?
So for us, it was easy because we had our own business. But like probably most of the plumbing businesses or air conditioning companies you may be talking to, they're probably family owned, and one person in the family is probably primarily operating the business. The other one might be working in the business, but me and my wife were both operating the ATM business, and we figured out I needed to be the real estate professional to take a full advantage of all the tax benefits. So we just basically took me off payroll. I got fired, if you will. And my wife ended up picking up my salary.
She gets to fire you?
Yeah.
Like Trump? She
daily.
call you in the boardroom?
Daily. I get fired daily.
Well, they say that's the trick. They say, fire yourself from pretty much every position and put the people in there that are better than you, and you've done a great job. And that's the real leadership behind a successful entrepreneur, is the team that surrounds you. And if you're doing everything, there's going to be leaks, right? You can't plug every hole at the same time. There's only so many fingers and toes. So putting that power team together is crucial. When you talked about, investors first and, the team, what happens if an investor doesn't reach their pro forma in a deal? Have you ever had that happen where, they pull up the original deck from 5 years ago or 4 years ago, and they're like, this says 22 to 24% IRR, 6 to 8%, distributions. I ended up, getting, my distributions paused. I ended up only getting, a 13%, return. How do you, if that ever happened to you, or if it were to happen to you, how would you approach to get that investor to still continue to invest in your future deals if they maybe didn't reach pro forma? Do you just, like you said, you always take care of the investor first? You just make sure that they got whatever their pro forma was? Because I've talked to other, operators, and they're just like, hey, we just make up the difference. We take it out of ours, we give it to them. But that doesn't really make sense when you got, 100 people in a deal. And, how would you approach a situation like that where somebody's pro forma'd something, but they don't actually get that? Is that just...
Great question. We have paused distributions, and we have had those same questions, and we'll have semi-annual webinar updates on the properties, and where we show them that our rents are exceeding pro forma today. That's the way our multifamily's been operating. The only problem is our expenses have gone up with insurance and cost of cash, because we, like most others, have put floating debt on our properties, and floating debt typically 99% of the time, if you have time horizons on your side, floating debt will always outperform fixed debt. So we went with the idea of putting floating debt on our properties, and our debt has gone up, and so is our insurance. So we can show that pro forma-wise, the complex is doing very, very well, but uncontrollables, i.e. insurance and the floating interest rate market, we couldn't control those, and that's what's caused us to pause distributions and hold on to cash so that we are prepared to go the long term. This is not a sprint. This is a long-term hold. This is a marathon of a event, and we explain that out of the gate. I literally replied to an email today, a gentleman that has $200,000 in. He just got married. He's like, I'd like to see when we're going to sell. I want to build a new house for me and my wife. when do you think we're going to sell? I'm chomping at the bit. And I explained to him, here's all of our stats. We're actually ahead here and we're ahead here, but we're behind based on these other things. And so we're probably looking at another 2 years. We're only 2 years in. And I told you this could be a 3 to 5 year hold. And so I reiterate what I shared out of the gate, and then I share with them where we're at based on what we promised and where the market's gone. So you have to answer the call. When an investor calls, our job as capital raisers and marketers of these single tenant apartment complexes, whatever we're doing, our job is to explain to them exactly what's going on and not avoid it. Good, bad, or otherwise, get on the phone. They want to have a one-on-one, and you have to just share with them. Is it going to come out of my pocket? If we were to sell tomorrow and the only way to make them whole is for me to give up my GP share, I give it up.
As in, like, just keep making sure they didn't lose money, or actually giving them their principal plus, their pro forma, like
at minimum 100% of their principal.
Understood.
Is where
Yes.
I would need to be.
Yep.
And I would give up my general partnership percentage to make sure that my investors were made whole on
That's
their limited
awesome.
partnership.
And that's probably something that comes up when, people are willing to have that conversation to invest $200,000 of their money. Am I going to lose this money? And when you say, look, I'll lose all my profit before you lose your money, and you put that, together for them, that probably makes them feel a lot better. So cool. That's awesome that you do that.
As we get kind of towards the end of the episode here, how do you see the landscape of real estate over the next 5 to 10 years? I mean, we've seen a lot of changes just with capital raising since the interest rates have gone up. People starting funds investing. It's just gotten more readily available for people to have that opportunity. And so, we mentioned Trump coming in office. What do you kind of see for the outlook?
That's a great question. So I did raise on a deal in December. Well, that same company put another deal on in January, and they were overfunded $20 million raise in 2 days. So let's start there. There is a truckload of capital sitting out there looking for a place to go. That's number one. Number two, Trump's a real estate guy. So I think we're going to roll back to 2017, and the bonus depreciation is going to go back to 100%, and they're probably going to make it permanent. That's the talk on the street. The other talk on the street is tariff. And I think that's being preached, but I was just at a conference with another gentleman that buys a lot more buildings than I do, and he pays cash for them. And he's saying, we're talking tariff because we want the foreign countries that are bringing stuff into America to buy our treasuries, which will drive the treasury price down, which will make lending and transactions start to happen. If we're not transacting, money's not moving. If money's not moving, the economy is not growing. So I think Trump is all about making the money move because the velocity of money helps people do a lot better. So, and him being a real estate guy first, that's been his lifelong business. I think we're going to see a lot of real estate rules and regulations come to fruition to help that money start moving in that space. And that's why I really wanted to be here today.
Well, we are glad that you wanted to be here today because this has been, super enlightening. I want to kind of wrap this whole thing up with more of a fun question, just get to know Michael Guthrie. So if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would you tell him?
Go bigger, faster.
Go bigger, go home, but go faster.
No, don't go home. Go bigger. Let's go with that one.
Okay.
And don't be so cautious. We were really cautious out of the gate because we did work for ourselves. We were in a banking industry where the banks could change regulations and we could be out of business. So we had a lot more money in savings than we probably should have. We probably should have had more money invested.
No risk it, no biscuit.
There you go.
Where do we find the man, the myth, the legend?
You just stole my final question.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah. Well, where can listeners find you or learn more about you?
You can learn more about me here's my cell phone. It's 509-270-6701. And that actually comes right here. This doesn't go to a service. Or you can come to my website and sign up for my newsletter at pacificcapitalllc.com.
But one rule, if they use your cell phone number and they got it from this episode,
we're putting that money back into single net lease.
Into Hungry and Clever Capital, right?
100%.
Okay, that's the stipulation. So obviously
That's
if you're
right.
watching this on Hungry Investments YouTube or listening to us on Spotify, you got to be into net lease, baby. It's nothing but net.
And the beautiful, I love that. There's nothing but net. And I love that. I give my cell phone out on every single podcast I'm on, and I've yet to receive one phone call. So I'm looking forward to the
Scared
first.
money don't make money.
That's right.
All right. Well, Michael, I appreciate. How about real quick, social medias? Anywhere?
I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter.
Okay. Well,
not on TikTok.
Well, I might have to now that Trump just brought it back in.
Yeah, Elon's probably going to buy it.
Yeah, there we go. It'll be called TikToks.
That's right.
Yeah, so don't worry about it. We'll make sure you check the description. We'll link everywhere to find Michael, everywhere to connect with Bryant and myself across all of our social medias. Michael, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast today.
Thank you.
And the next time we'll get your beautiful bride and the boss over on the couch, because I'm sure this probably won't be the first.
She's much more eloquent than I am.
Won't be the last episode where we have Michael Guthrie on here. We'll have something else to talk about.
We will.
With that, thank you guys so much for joining us today on this episode of Rents Due Podcast. Again, as always, if you're not doing it already, I don't know what you're doing, but make sure you like, subscribe, smash that button, and follow us on all social medias, Hungry Investments. Again, my name is Christian Cotta. This is Rents Due, the commercial real estate investment and development podcast, where we help you start investing in bigger and better deals, baby. Nothing but net. Thank you, Michael.
Nothing but the net.
Thank you, B.
Let's go.
That's a wrap for now. To start building your commercial investment empire, episode by episode, don't forget to subscribe now. We'll catch you on the next episode of Rents Due.